Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Roger's Believe It or Don't. For those who are unfamiliar with this format, this is the usual reading format. Feel free to just toss this on in the background when you really need it, I suppose. Tonight we will begin reading Dune in accordance with the recent point goal. Book 1, Dune. A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then take care that you first place him in this time, born in the 57th year of the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, and take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place. From Manual of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. In the week before their departure to Arrakis, when all the final scurrying about had reached a nearly unbearable frenzy, an old crone came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. It was a warm night at Castle Caladan, and the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore that cooled sweat feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. You know what? I'm just going to turn ads off tonight. Yeah, ads should be off now. Ooh. Oh, sorry. I just finished eating a big bowl of rice. Bore that cooled sweat feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. The old woman was let in by the side door down the vaulted passage by Paul's room, and she was allowed a moment to peer in at him, where he lay in his bed. By the half-light of a dispenser lamp, dimmed and hanging near the floor, the awakened boy could see a bulky female shape at his door. Standing one step ahead of his mother, the old woman was a witch shadow. Hair like matted spiderwebs, hooded around darkness of features, eyes like glittering jewels. Is he not small for his age, Jessica? The old woman asked. Her voice wheezed and twanged, like an untuned baliset. Paul's mother answered in her soft contralto. The Atreides are known to start late getting their growth, Your Reverence. So I've heard, wheezed the old woman. Yet he's already 15. Yes, Your Reverence. He's awake and listening to us, said the old woman. Sly little rascal. She chuckled. But royalty has a need of slyness, and if he's already the Kwisatz Haderach, well... Within the shadows of his bed, Paul held his eyes open to mere slits. 2 bird-bright ovals, the eyes of the old woman, seemed to expand and glow as they stared into his. Sleep well, you sly little rascal, said the old woman. Tomorrow you'll need all your faculties to meet my Gom Jabbar. Oh dear, it appears I've lost another phone. Oh, the person who complimented me yesterday is, their entire account's gone. That's unfortunate. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I know I shouldn't be doing that, especially on reading streams, but that's how it is sometimes. And she was gone, pushing his mother out, closing the door with a solid thump. Paul lay awake, wondering, what's a Gom Jabbar? In all the upset during this time of change, the old woman was the strangest thing he had seen. Your Reverence. And the way she called his mother Jessica like a common serving wench. Good evening, Paisley Flamingo. Yes, that's what we're reading. I'm abiding by my promises. Like a common serving wench instead of what she was, a Bene Gesserit lady, a duke's concubine and mother of the ducal heir. Is a Gom Jabbar something of Arrakis I must know before we go there? He wondered. He mouthed her strange words. Gom Jabbar. Quesax Haderach. There had been so many things to learn. Arrakis would be a place so different from Caladan that Paul's mind whirled with the new knowledge. Arrakis. Dune. Desert planet. Tafir Hawat, his father's master of assassins, had explained it. Their mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, had been on Arrakis 80 years, holding the planet as a quasi-fief under the Choam Company contract to mine the geriatric spice melange. Now the Harkonnens were leaving to be replaced by the House of Atreides, in fief complete and apparent victory for the Duke Leto. Yet, Hawat had said, this appearance contained the deadliest peril, for the Duke Leto was popular among the great houses of the Landsraad. Popular man rouses the jealousy of the powerful, Hawat had said. Arrakis. Dune. Desert planet. Paul fell asleep to dream of an Arakian cavern. Silent people all around him moving in the dim light of glow globes. A little bit of a tongue twister there, I'm terribly sorry. It was solemn there and like a cathedral as he listened to a faint sound. The drip, drip, drip of water. Even while he remained in the dream, Paul knew he would remember it upon awakening. He always remembered the dreams that were predictions. The dream faded. Paul awoke to feel himself in the warmth of his bed, thinking. This world of Castle Caladan, without play or companions his own age, perhaps did not deserve sadness and farewell. Dr. Yua, his teacher, had hinted that the Fauferluchas class system was not rigidly guarded on Arrakis. The planet sheltered people who lived in the desert, who lived at the desert edge, without Cade or Bashar to command them. Willow the Sand people, called Fremen, marked down on no census of the Imperial Regit. Arrakis. Dune. Desert planet. Paul sensed his own tensions, decided to practice one of the mind-body lessons his mother had taught him. 3 quick breaths triggered the responses. He fell into the floating awareness, focusing the consciousness, aortal dilation, avoiding the unfocused mechanism of consciousness, to be conscious by choice, blood enriched and swift flooding the overload regions. One does not obtain food safety freedom by instinct alone. Animal consciousness does not extend beyond the given moment, nor into the idea that its victims may become extinct. The animal destroys and does not produce. Animal pleasures remain close to the sensation levels and avoid the perceptual. The human requires a background grid through which to see his universe. Focused consciousness by choice, this forms your grid. Bodily integrity allows nerve blood flow according to the deepest awareness of cell needs. All things/cells/beings are impermanent. Strive for flow permanence within. Over and over within Paul's floating awareness, the lesson rolled. When dawn touched Paul's window sill, the yellow light, he sensed it through closed eyelids. Opened them, hearing when the renewed bustle and hurry in the castle, seeing the familiar patterned beams of his bedroom ceiling. The hall door opened and his mother peered in, hair like shaded bronze, held with black ribbon at the crown. Her oval face motionless and green eyes staring solemnly. "You're awake," she said. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes." He studied the tallness of her, saw the hint of tension in her shoulders as she chose clothing for him from the closet racks. Another might have missed the tension, but she had trained him in the Bene Gesserit way, in the minutiae of observation. She turned, holding a semi-formal jacket for him. It carried the red Atreides hawk crest above the breast pocket. "Hurry and dress," she said. "Reverend Mother is waiting." "I dreamed of her once," Paul said. "Who is she?" "She was my teacher at the Bene Gesserit school. Now she's the Emperor's truth-sayer." "And Paul," she hesitated, "you must tell her about your dreams." "I will. Is she the reason we got Arrakis?" "We did not get Arrakis." Jessica flicked the dust from a pair of trousers, hung them with the jacket on the dressing stand beside the bed. "Don't keep Reverend Mother waiting." Paul sat up, hugged his knees. "What's a Gom Jabbar?" Again, the training she'd given him exposed her most invisible hesitation. A nervous betrayal she felt his fear. Jessica crossed to the window, flung wide the draperies, stared across the river orchards toward Mount Siubi. "You'll learn about the Gom Jabbar soon enough," she said. He heard the fear in her voice and wondered at it. Jessica spoke without turning. "Sorry, my bad. Reverend Mother is waiting in my morning room. Please hurry." The Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Boheim sat in a tapestried chair watching mother and son approach. Windows on each side of her overlooked the curving southern bend of the river and the green farmlands of the Atreides family holding. But the Reverend Mother ignored the view. She was feeling her age this morning. More than a little petulant, she blamed it on space travel and association with that abominable spacing guild and its secretive ways. But here was a mission that required personal attention from the Bene Gesserit with the sight. Even the Padishah Emperor's truthsayer couldn't evade that responsibility when the duty call came. "Damn that Jessica," the Reverend Mother thought. "If only she'd borne us a girl, as she was ordered to do." Jessica stopped 3 paces from the chair, dropped a small curtsy, a gentle flick of the left hand along the side of her skirt. Paul gave the short bow his dancing master had taught, the one used when in doubt of another's station. The nuances of Paul's greeting were not lost on the Reverend Mother. She said, "He's a cautious one, Jessica." Jessica's hand went to Paul's shoulder, tightened there for a heartbeat. Fear pulsed through her palm. Then she had herself under control. "Thus he has been taught, your reverence." What does she fear? Paul wondered. The old woman studied Paul in one gestalten flicker. Face oval like Jessica's, but strong bones. Hair. The Duke's black had, but with brow line. But with brow line Jessica's. But strong bones. Oh wait, no, wait. But with brow line of the maternal grandfather who cannot be named. Sorry, I got confused. Lines got mixed up. That's my bad. And that thin, disdainful nose. Shape of directly staring green eyes. Like the old Duke, the paternal grandfather who is dead. Now, there was a man who appreciated the power of bravura. Even in death, the Reverend Mother thought. Teaching is one thing, she said. The basic ingredient is another. We shall see. The old eyes darted a hard glance at Jessica. Leave us. I enjoin you to practice the meditation of peace. Jessica took her hand from Paul's shoulder. Your Reverence, Jessica, you know it must be done. Paul looked up at his mother, puzzled. Jessica straightened. Yes, of course. Paul looked back at the Reverend Mother. Politeness and his mother's obvious awe of this old woman argued caution. Yet he felt an angry apprehension at the fear he sensed radiating from his mother. Paul, Jessica took a deep breath. The test you're about to receive, it's important to me. Test? He looked up at her. Remember that you're a Duke's son, Jessica said. She whirled and strode from the room in a dry swishing of skirt. The door closed solidly behind her. Paul faced the old woman, holding anger in his cheek. Does one dismiss the Lady Jessica as though she were a serving wench? A smile flicked the corners of the wrinkled old mouth. The Lady Jessica was my serving wench, lad, for 14 years at school, she nodded. And a good one, too. Now, you come here. The command whipped out of him. Paul found himself obeying before he could think about it. Using the voice on me, he thought. He stopped at her gesture, standing beside her knees. See this? She asked. From the folds of her gown, she lifted a green metal cube about 15 centimeters on a side. She turned it, and Paul saw that one side was open, black and oddly frightening. No light penetrated that open blackness. Now we scroll down a little more. Put your right hand in the box, she said. Fear shot through Paul. He started to back away. The old woman said, Is this how you obey your mother? He looked into bird-bright eyes. Slowly feeling the compulsions and unable to inhibit them, Paul put his hand into the box. He felt first a sense of good evening, Bella Dane. Welcome to the channel. I should have turned down alert notifications, like alert noises for this. That's my bad. My bad wholeheartedly. Slowly, trying to figure out where I was. He felt first a sense of cold as the blackness closed around his hand, then slick metal against his fingers and prickling as though his hands were asleep. A predatory look filled the old woman's features. She lifted her right hand away from the box and poised the hand close to the side of Paul's neck. He saw a glint of metal there and started to turn toward it. "Stop," she snapped. Using the voice again, he swung his attention back to her face. "I hold at your neck the Gom Jabbar," she said. "The Gom Jabbar, the high-handed enemy. It's a needle with a drop of poison on its tip. Don't pull away or you'll feel that poison." Paul tried to swallow in a dry throat. He could not take his attention away from the seamed cold face, the glistening eyes, the pale gums around silvery metal teeth that flashed as she spoke. "A duke's son must know about poisons," she said. "It's the way of our times, huh? Musky, to be poisoned in your drink. Almost to be poisoned in your food. The quick ones, the slow ones, and the ones in between. There's a new one for you. The Gom Jabbar. It kills only animals." Pride overcame Paul's fear. "You dare suggest the Duke's son is an animal?" he demanded. "Let us say I suggest you may be human," she said. "Steady? I warn you not to try jerking away. I am old, but my hand can drive this needle into your neck before you escape me." "Who are you?" he whispered. "How did you trick my mother into leaving me alone with you? Are you from the Harkonnens?" "The Harkonnens? Bless us, no." "Now, be silent." A dry finger touched his neck, and he stilled the involuntary urge to leap away. "Good," she said. "You passed the first test. Now here's the way of the rest of it. If you withdraw your hand from the box, you die. This is the only rule. Keep your hand in the box and live. Withdraw it and die." Paul took a deep breath to still his trembling. "If I call out, there will be servants on you in seconds, and you will die. The servants will not pass your mother who stands guard outside that door. Depend on it, your mother survived this test. Now it's your turn. Be honored. We seldom administer this to men children." Curiosity reduced Paul's fear to a manageable level. He heard truth in the old woman's voice. No denying it. His mother stood guard out there. If this were truly a test, and whatever it was, he knew himself caught in it, trapped by that hand at his neck. The Gom Jabbar. He recalled the response from the litany against fear, as his mother had taught him. Out of the Bene Gesserit rite. "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain." He felt calmness return. And said, "Get on with it, old woman." "Old woman," she snapped. "You've courage. That can't be denied. Well, we shall see, Sarah." She bent close, lowered her voice almost to a whisper. "You will feel pain in this hand within the box. Pain. But withdraw the hand and I'll touch your neck with my Gom Jabbar. The death so swift, like the fall of a headsman's axe. Withdraw your hand and the Gom Jabbar takes you, understand?" "What's in the box?" "Pain." He felt increased tingling in his hand. Pressed his lips tightly together. How could this be a test, he wondered. The tingling became an itch. The old woman said, "You've heard of animals chewing off a leg to escape a trap. There's an animal kind of trick. A human would remain in the trap, endure the pain, feigning death that he might kill the trapper and remove the threat to his kind. The itch became the faintest burning. Why are you doing this? He demanded. To determine if you're human. Be silent. Paul clenched his left hand into a fist as the burning sensation increased in the other hand. It mounted slowly. Heat upon heat upon heat upon heat. He felt the fingernails of his free hand biting the palm. He tried to flex his fingers of the burning hand, but couldn't move them. It burns, he whispered. Silence! Pain throbbed up his arm. Sweat stood out on his forehead. Every fiber cried out to withdraw the hand from that burning pit. But the Gom Jabbar. Without turning his head, he tried to move his eyes to see that terrible needle poised beside his neck. He sensed that he was breathing in gasps. Tried to slow his breaths and couldn't. Pain! His world emptied of everything except the hand immersed in agony. The ancient face inches away staring at him. His lips were so dry he had difficulty separating them. The burning! The burning! He thought he could feel skin curling back on that agonized hand. The flesh crisping and dropping away until only charred bones remain. It stopped. As though a switch had been turned off, the pain stopped. Paul felt his right arm trembling, felt sweat bathing his body. Enough, the old woman muttered. Kurwad! No woman child ever withstood that much. I must have wanted you to fail. She leaned back, withdrawing the Gom Jabbar from the side of his neck. Take your hand from the box, young human, and look at it. He fought down an aching shiver, stared at the lightless void where his hand seemed to remain of its own volition. Memory of pain inhibited every movement. Reason told him he would withdraw a blackened stump from that box. Do it! She snapped. He jerked his hand from the box, stared at it astonished. Not a mark. No sign of agony on the flesh. He held up the hand, turned it, flexed the fingers. Pain by nerve induction, she said. Can't go around maiming potential humans. There are those who'd give a pretty penny for the secret of this box, though. She slipped it into the folds of her gown. But the pain, he said. Pain, she sniffed. A human can override any nerve in the body. Paul felt his left hand aching, uncurled the clenched fingers, looked at 4 bloody marks where fingernails had bitten his palm. He dropped the hand to his side, looked at the old woman. You did that to my mother once? Ever sift sand through a screen? She asked. The tangential slash of her question shocked his mind into a higher awareness. Sand through a screen. Congratulations on having the fastest hands in the West, Barley Parley. Oh boy, here I go. I'm getting distracted again. Oh. Hang on, I'm looking at some stuff. There we go. Why am I getting notifications on my telephone? Oh, great. Well, let's get back into it. Let's focus again. Sand through a screen, he nodded. We Bene Gesserits sift people to find the humans. He lifted his right hand, willing the memory of the pain. That's all there is to it? Pain? I observed you in pain, lad. Pain's merely the axis of my test. Your mother told you about our ways of observing. I see the signs of her teaching in you. Our test is crisis and observation. You hear the confirmation in her voice. Said, it's truth. She stared at him. He senses truth. Could he be the one? Could he truly be the one? She extinguished the excitement, reminding herself. Hope clouds observation. You should know when people believe what they say, she said. I know it. The harmonics of ability confirmed by repeated tests were in his voice. She heard them, and said, Perhaps you are the Kwisatz Haderach. Sit down, little brother, here at my feet. I prefer to stand. Your mother sat at my feet once. I'm not my mother. You hate us a little, eh? She looked toward the door, called out, Jessica! The door flew open and Jessica stood there, staring hard-eyed into the room. Hardness melted from her as she saw Paul. She managed a faint smile. Jessica, have you ever stopped hating me? The old woman asked. I both love and hate you, Jessica said. The hate, that's from pains I must never forget. Love, that's just the basic fact, the old woman said, but her voice was gentle. You may come in now, but remain silent. Close that door and mind it that no one interrupts us. Jessica stepped into the room, closed the door, and stood with her back to it. My son lives, she thought. My son lives and is human. I knew he was, but he lives. Now I can go on living. The door felt hard and real against her back. Everything in the room was immediate and pressing against her senses. My son lives. Paul looked at his mother. She told the truth. He wanted to get away alone and think this experience through, but knew he could not leave until he was dismissed. The old woman had gained power over him. They spoke truth. His mother had undergone this test. There must be a terrible purpose in it. The pain and fear have been terrible. He understood terrible purposes. They drove against all odds. They were their own necessity. Paul felt he had been infected with terrible purpose. He did not know yet what the terrible purpose was. Someday, lad, the old woman said, you too may have to stand outside a door like that. It takes a measure of doing. Going to sip my coffee now? Oh. Paul looked down at the hand that had known pain, then up to the Reverend Mother. The sound of her voice had contained a difference than from any other voice in his experience. The words were outlined in brilliance. There was an edge to them. He felt that any question he might ask her would bring an answer that could lift him out of his flesh world into something greater. Why do you test for humans, he asked. To set you free. Free? Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hopes that this would set them free. But that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of man's mind, Paul quoted. Right out of the Butlerian Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible, she said. But what the OC Bible should have said is, Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind. Have you studied the medtat in your service? I've studied with Tafir Hawat. The Great Revolt took away a crutch, she said. It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents. Bene Gesserit schools? She nodded. We have two chief survivors of those ancient schools. The Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The Guild, so we think, emphasizes almost pure mathematics. Bene Gesserit performs another function. Politics, he said. Kulhawad, the old woman said. She had a hard glance at Jessica. I've not told them, Your Reverence, Jessica said. The Reverend Mother returned her attention to Paul. You did that on remarkably few clues, he said. Politics indeed. The original Bene Gesserit school was directed by those who saw the need of a thread of continuity in human affairs. They saw there could be no such continuity without separating human stock from animal stock. For breeding purposes. The old woman's words abruptly lost their special sharpness for Paul. He felt an offense against what his mother called his instinct for rightness. It wasn't that Reverend Mother lied to him. She obviously believed what she said. It was something deeper. Something tied to this terrible, terrible purpose, he said. But my mother tells me many Bene Gesserit of the schools don't know their ancestry. The genetic lines are always in our records, she said. Your mother knows that either she's of Bene Gesserit descent, or her stock was acceptable in itself. Then why couldn't she know who her parents are? Some do. Many don't. We might, for example, have wanted to breed her to a close relative, set up a dominant in some genetic trait. We have many reasons. Again, Paul felt the offense against rightness, he said. You take a lot on yourselves. The Reverend Mother stared at him, wondering, did I hear criticism in his voice? We carry a heavy burden, she said. Paul felt himself coming more and more out of the shock of the test. He leveled a measuring stare at her, said, You say maybe I'm the Kwisatz Haderach. What's that, a human Gomjabar? Paul, Jessica said. You mustn't take that tone with, I'll handle this, Jessica, the old woman said. Now, lad, do you know about the Truthsayer drug? You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood, he said. My mother told me. Have you ever seen Truth Trance? He shook his head. No. The drug's dangerous, she said, but it gives insight. When a Truthsayer is gifted by the drug, she can look many places in her memory. In her body's memory. We look down so many avenues of the past. But only feminine avenues. Her voice took on a note of sadness. Yet there's a place where no truthsayer can see. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. He will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine pasts. Your Kwisatz Haderach? Yes. The one who can be many places at once. The Kwisatz Haderach. Many men have tried the drug. So many, but none have succeeded. They tried and failed? All of them? Oh, no. They tried and died. Ooh. My ass is a little uncomfortable right now. That's fine. I'm not doing anything too crazy. Oh, big crowd today. Nice. Oh yeah. before I forget, this is a sincere request to chat. Remind me to show you something really cool later. Oh, I suppose we just finished out a chapter. There's no specific chapter marker, but there is another excerpt from the manual of Muad'Dib. Been 45 minutes. Yeah, I have time for another chapter, I suppose. To attempt an understanding of Muad'Dib without understanding his mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, is to attempt seeing truth without knowing falsehood. It is the attempt to see the light without knowing darkness. It cannot be. From Manual of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. It was a relief globe of a world, partly in shadows, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. The globe sat on a free-form stand at one wall of a windowless room, whose other walls presented a patchwork of multicolored scrolls, film books, tapes, and reels. Light glowed in the room from golden balls and mobile dispenser fields. An ellipsoid desk at the top of jade-pink petrified elica wood stood at the center of the room. Variform suspensal chairs ringed it. Two of them occupied. In one sat a dark-haired youth, about 16 years, round of face and with sullen eyes. The other held a slender, short man with an effeminate face. Both youth and man stared at the globe, and the man half hidden in shadows spinning it. A chuckle sounded beside the globe. A basso voice rumbled out of the chuckle. "There it is, Peter. The biggest man trap in all history, and the Duke's headed into its jaws. It is not a magnificent thing that I, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, do." "Assuredly, Baron," said the man. His voice came out tenor with a sweet, musical quality. The fat hand descended onto the globe, stopped the spinning now. All eyes in the room could focus on the motionless surface, see that it was the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of an empire. It had the stamp of imperial handicraft about it. Latitude and longitude lines were laid in with hair-fine platinum wire. The polar caps were in sets of the finest cloud milk diamonds. The fat hand moved, tracing details on the surface. "I invite you to observe," the basso voice rumbled. "Observe closely, Peter. And you too, Feyd-Rautha, my darling. From 60 degrees north to 70 degrees south. These exquisite ripples, their coloring, does it not remind you of sweet caramels?" Oh, sorry, I keep bumping the microphone while trying to scratch my nose. "And nowhere do you see blue lakes or rivers or seas. These lovely polar caps, so small. Could anyone mistake this place? Arrakis, truly unique, a superb setting for a unique victory." A smile touched Peter's lips. "And to think, Baron, the Padishah Emperor believes he's given the Duke your spice planet. How poignant." "That's a nonsensical statement," the Baron rumbled. "You say this to confuse young Feyd-Rautha." but it is not necessary to confuse my nephew. The sullen-faced youth stirred in his chair, smoothed a wrinkle on the black leotards he wore, sat upright as a discreet tapping sounded at the door in the wall behind him. Peter unfolded from his chair, crossed to the door, and cracked it open wide enough to accept a message cylinder. Closed the door, unrolled the cylinder, and scanned it. Chuckle sounded from him. Another. Well, the Baron demanded. The fool answered us, Baron. Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture? He asked. Well, what does it say? He's most uncouth, Baron. Addresses you as Harkonnen. No. Sire et cher cousin. No title. Nothing. It's a good name, the Baron growled. His voice betrayed his impatience. What does dear Leto say? He says, your offer of a meeting is refused. I have oft-times met your treachery, and this all men know. And? The Baron asks. He says, the art of Canley still has admirers in the Empire. He signs it Duke Leto of Arrakis. Peter began to laugh. Of Arrakis? Oh my. This is almost too rich. Be silent, Peter, the Baron said, and the laughter stopped as though shut off with a switch. Canley, is it? The Baron asked. Vendetta, huh? And he uses such the nice old words, so rich in tradition. To be sure, I know he means it. You made a peace gesture, Peter said. The forms have been obeyed. For a mentat, you talk too much, Peter, the Baron said. And he thought, I must do away with that one. He has almost outlived his usefulness. The Baron stared across the room at his mentat assassin. Seeing the feature about him, most people noticed first the eyes, the shaded slits of blue within blue, the eyes without any white in them at all. A grin flashed across Peter's face. It was like a mask grimaced beneath those eyes like holes. But Baron, never has revenge been more beautiful. It is to see a plan of the most exquisite treachery to make Leto exchange Caladan for DUNE, and without alternative, because the Emperor orders it. How waggish of you! In a cold voice, the Baron said, You have a flux of the mouth, Peter. But I am happy, my Baron, whereas you are touched by jealousy. Peter? Baron, it is not regrettable you were unable to devise this delicious scheme yourself. Oh, is it not regrettable you were unable to devise this delicious scheme yourself? Some day I'll have you strangled, Peter. Of a certainty, Baron. On Finn. But a kind act is never lost, eh? Have you been chewing Verite or Semuta, Peter? Truth without fear surprises the Baron, Peter said. His face drew down into a caricature of a frowning mask. But you see, Baron, I know as a mentat when you will send the executioner. You will hold back just so long as I'm useful. To move sooner would be wasteful, and I'm yet of much use. I know what it is you learned from that lovely DUNE planet. Waste not, true, Baron? The Baron continued to stare at Peter. Rotha squirmed in his chair. These wrangling fools, he thought. My uncle cannot talk to this mentat without arguing. Do they think I've nothing to do except listen to their arguments? Fade, the Baron said. I told you to listen and learn when I invited you in. Are you learning? Yes, uncle. The voice was carefully subservient. Sometimes I wonder about Peter, the Baron said. I cause pain out of necessity, but I swear he takes a positive delight in it. For myself, I can feel pity toward the poor Duke Leto. Dr. Yue will move against him soon, and that'll be the end of all the Atreides. But surely Leto will... No. Sorry, big yawn. We'll know whose hand... I lost where I am. But surely Leto will know whose hand directed the pliant doctor. And knowing that will be a terrible thing. Then why haven't you directed the doctor to slip a kinjal between his ribs, quietly and efficiently? Peter asked. You talk of pity, but the Duke must know when I encompass his doom, the Baron said. And the other great houses must learn of it. The knowledge will give them pause. I'll gain a bit more room to maneuver. The necessity is obvious, but I don't have to like it. Room to maneuver, Peter sneered. Already you have the Emperor's eyes on you, Baron. You move too boldly. One day the Emperor will send a legion or two of his Sardaukar down to Giedi Prime, and that'll be an end to the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. You'd like to see that, wouldn't you, Peter? The Baron asked. You'd enjoy seeing the corps of Sardaukar pillage through my cities and sack this castle. You truly enjoy that. Does the Baron need to ask? Peter whispered. You should have been a Bashar of the corps, the Baron said. You're too interested in blood and pain. Perhaps I was too quick with my promise of the spoils of Arrakis. Peter took 5 curiously mincing steps into the room, stopped directly behind Rotha. There was a tight air of tension in the room, and the youth looked up at Peter with a worried frown. Do not toy with Peter, Baron, Peter said. You promised me the Lady Jessica. You promised her to me. For what, Peter? The Baron asked. For pain? Peter stared at him, dragging out the silence. Rotha moved his Spencer chair to one side. Said, Uncle, do I have to stay? You said you'd... My darling Rotha grows impatient, the Baron said. He moved within the shadows beside the globe. Patience, Fade. And he turned his attention back to the mentat. What of the Dukeling, the child Paul, my dear Peter? The trap will bring him to you, Baron, Peter muttered. That's not my question, the Baron said. You'll recall that you predicted the Bene Gesserit witch would bear a daughter to the Duke. You were wrong, eh, Mentat? I'm not often wrong, Baron, Peter said. For the first time there was fear in his voice. Give me that. I'm not often wrong. And you know yourself these Bene Gesserit bear mostly daughters. Even the Emperor's consort had produced only females. Uncle, said Rotha, said there'd be something important here for me to... Listen to my nephew, the Baron said. He aspires to rule my barony, yet he cannot rule himself. The Baron stirred beside the globe, a shadow among shadows. Well then, Phaedrotha Harkona, I summoned you here, hoping to teach you a bit of wisdom. Have you observed our good Mentat? Should have learned something from this exchange. But uncle, a most efficient Mentat, Peter, wouldn't you say, Fade? Yes, but indeed, but he consumes too much spice, eats it like candy. Look at his eyes. He might have come directly from the Arcane labor pool. Efficient, Peter, but he's still emotional and prone to passionate outbursts. Efficient, Peter, but he still can err. Peter spoke in a low, sullen tone. Did you call me in here to impair my efficiency with criticism, Baron? Impair your efficiency? You know me better, Peter. I wish only for my nephew to understand the limitations of a Mentat. Are you already training my replacement? Peter demanded. Replace you? Why, Peter? Why, Peter? Where could I find another Mentat with your cunning and venom? The same place you found me, Baron. Perhaps I should at that, the Baron mused. You do seem a bit unstable lately, and the spice you eat. Are my pleasures too expensive, Baron? Do you object to them? My dear Peter, your pleasures are what tie you to me. How could I object to that? I merely wish my nephew to observe this about you. Then I'm on display, Peter said. Shall I dance? Shall I perform my various functions for the eminent Fade route? Precisely, that Baron said. You are on display, now be silent. He glanced at Phaedrotha, noting his nephew's lips, full and pouting look of them. The Harkonnen genetic marker now twisted slightly in amusement. This is a Mentat, Fade. It has been trained and conditioned to perform certain duties. The fact that it's encased in a human body, however, must not be overlooked. A serious drawback that I sometimes think the ancients, with their thinking machines, had the right idea. They were toys compared to me, Peter snarled. You, yourself, Baron, could outperform those machines. Perhaps, the Baron said. Ah, well. He took a deep breath, belched. Now, Peter, the outline for my nephew and the salient features of our campaign against the House of Atreides. Function as a Mentat for us, if you please. Baron, I've warned you not to trust one so young with this information of my observations of... I'll be the judge of this, the Baron said. I give you an order, Mentat. Perform one of your functions. So be it, Peter said. He strained, assuming an odd attitude of dignity, as though it were another mask, this time clothing his entire body. Oh. Big yawn. In a few days' standard, the entire household of Duke Leto will embark on a Space Guild liner for Arrakis. The Guild will deposit them in the city of Arrakeen, rather than our city of Carthage. The Duke's Mentat, Thufir Hawat, will have concluded rightly that Arrakeen is easier to defend. Listen carefully, Fade, the Baron said. Observe the plans within plans within plans. Phaedrotha nodded, thinking, this is more like it. The old monster is letting me in on a secret things at last. He must really mean for me to be his heir. There are several tangential possibilities, Peter said. I indicated that House Atreides will go to Arrakis. We must not, however, ignore the possibility the Duke has contracted with the Guild to remove him to a place of safety outside the system. Others, in like circumstances, have become renegade houses, taking family atomics and shields and fleeing beyond the Imperium. The Duke's too proud a man for that, the Baron said. It is a possibility, Peter said. The ultimate effect for us would be the same, however. No, it would not, the Baron growled. I must have him dead, and his line ended. That's the high probability, Peter said. There are certain preparations that indicate when a house is going renegade. The Duke appears to be doing none of those things. So, the Baron sighed. Get on with it, Peter. At Arakeen, Peter said, the Duke and his family will occupy the Residency, lately the home of Count and Lady Fenring. The ambassador to the smugglers, the Baron chuckled. Ambassador to what? Feyd-Rautha asked. Your uncle makes a joke, Peter said. He calls Count Fenring ambassador to the smugglers, indicating the Emperor's interest in smuggling operations on Arrakis. Feyd-Rautha turned a puzzled stare to his uncle. Why? Don't be dense, Feyd, the Baron snapped. As long as the guild remains effectively outside Imperial control, how could it be otherwise? How else could spies and assassins move about? Feyd-Rautha's mouth made a soundless, oh. We've arranged diversions at the Residency, Peter said. There will be an attempt on the life of the Atreides heir, an attempt which could succeed. Peter, the Baron rumbled. I indicated accidents can happen, Peter said, and the attempt must appear valid. Ah, but the lad has such a sweet young body, the Baron said. Of course, he's potentially more dangerous than the father, with that witch mother training him. Accursed woman. Ah, well, please continue, Peter. Hawat will have divined that we have an agent planted on them, Peter said. The obvious suspect is Dr. Yue, who is indeed our agent, but Hawat has investigated and found that our doctor is a Suk school graduated with Imperial conditioning, supposedly safe enough to administer even to the Emperor. Great store is set on Imperial conditioning. It is assumed the ultimate conditioning cannot be removed without killing the subject. However, as someone once observed, given the right lever, you can move a planet. We found the lever that moved the doctor. How? Feyd-Rautha asked. He found this a fascinating subject. Everyone knew you couldn't subvert Imperial conditioning. Another time, the Baron said. Continue, Peter. In place of Yue, Peter said, we'll drag a most interesting suspect across Hawat's path. The very audacity of the suspect will recommend her to Hawat's attention. Her? Feyd-Rautha asked. The Lady Jessica herself, the Baron said. Is it not sublime? Peter asked. Hawat's mind will be so filled with this prospect it'll impair his function as a Mantat. He may even try to kill her. Peter frowned then, but I don't think he'll be able to carry it off. Sorry, I keep yawning. You don't want him to, eh? The Baron asked. Don't distract me, Peter said. While Hawat's occupied with the Lady Jessica, We'll divert him further with uprisings in a few garrison towns and the like. These will be put down. The Duke must believe he's gaining a measure of security. Then when the moment is ripe, we'll signal Yue and move him in with our major force. Go ahead and tell him all of it, the Baron said. We'll move in, strengthened by 2 legions of Sardaukar, disguised in Harkonnen livery. Sardaukar? Phaedrotha breathed, his mind focused on the dread Imperial troops. The killers without mercy, the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Emperor. You see how I trust you, Fade, the Emperor said. No hint of this must ever reach another great house, else the Landsraad might unite against the Imperial House, and there'd be chaos. The main point, Peter said, is this. Since House Harkonnen is being used to do Imperial dirty work, we've gained a true advantage. The dangerous advantage, to be sure, but if used cautiously, will bring House Harkonnen greater wealth than that of any other house in the Imperium. All right, I'm getting rather tired. I think I might actually need to take a nap. Oh man, that's terrible. I'm terribly sorry. You did get a decent amount in. 27 pages out of 579. Is there anyone I feel like throwing you all to right now? No. Huh. Oh. I just remembered I'm supposed to show you all something before I log out for the night. So image, this one. Okay, here we go. Let me replace this with the image I actually intend to show. Yep, here we go. I'm almost done. Don't worry. Yeah, here we go. So I recently paid to have a little work done. This is by Venom Guy on Tumblr, who I believe is Shinkai Kaiju in chat. Unfortunately, the fish is not here. At least not here now. It's great, phenomenal piece. I'm very glad I got the work. I paid to have the work done. Ooh. Oh. All right, I'm tired. I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm gonna go take a nap before I probably either have dinner or get back on Fortnite with the boys. Thank you everyone for showing up. I apologize for this being a little short. I will see you all No, not tomorrow. I have to go see my sister tomorrow. Sunday. I'll see you Sunday. Bye.
Yo.